is on. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning. Good morning. Come on. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yeah. Good morning, Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Blade Nzimande, NACI Council Chairperson, Mr. Tilson Manyoni, NACI Acting CEO, Ms. Annalene Morgan, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends of the National System of Innovation. I welcome you on behalf of the National Advisory Council on Innovation to launch the 2025 Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators Report. So my name is Professor Bhavesh Khanna. I hail from Wits University and I'm a member of the NACI Council, and it is my privilege to be your program director for this event. So today we gather to launch the NACI flagship report on STI indicators, a report that serves both as a mirror and a compass. A mirror because it reflects where we stand today, and a compass because it points to where we need to go. The 2025 STI Indicators Report is our annual health check on the National System of Innovation, and its findings are clear. We have genuine strengths, but there are critical gaps between knowledge and impact that we need to address. I trust you are all ready for a morning of reflection, discussion, and eventually action. So to formally open our proceedings, I would like to invite the NACI Chair, Mr. Tilson Manyoni, to deliver some welcome remarks. Mr. Manyoni.
I just realized that I'm short. So, Minister, you're not the only one who's short, I'm also short. So this helps, because I can see everybody. It is firm enough. And I must also declare, Mr. that I'm not short, I'm vertically challenged. Thank you, Program Director, Professor Bhavesh Khan, NACI Council Member, Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Nzimande, Acting Director General of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, Ms. Swani, NACI Acting CEO, Ms. Annalene Morgan, council members, leaders from our council, science councils and universities, High Excellencies, ambassadors, high commissioners and heads of missions, captains of industry, civil society partners, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning again and welcome. Honorable Minister, council members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all and I welcome you to the launch of the 2025 STI Indicators Report. It gives me great pleasure and honor to once again stand here to witness the launching of our annual flagship report on the status of science, technology, and innovation in South Africa. I stand here before you today not to represent the findings. The Honourable Minister will do so shortly, but to explain the purpose of this report and how it has evolved over a period of time. The STI 2025 Indicators Report evaluates the performance of South African National System of Innovation. It consolidates data from reliable local and international sources to give us a clear, evidence-based picture of how we're advancing as a country. Where possible, it identified the drivers of observed trends, and it aims to stimulate further investigations into topics of national importance. Why do we need such a report? It's because you cannot fix what you do not measure. You cannot improve what you do not understand. The report has been produced for many years, and over time it has been enriched in terms of scope and inquiry to make sure that we have a better understanding of our national system of innovation. In 2020, NACI adopted a comprehensive monitoring evaluation framework for the national system of innovation. The framework provides an analytical structure that guides the selection, the presentation, and the discussions of the indicators in this report. What is new in the 2025 edition is that we have expanded our coverage to include indicators for international benchmarking, health innovation, energy innovation, and high-tech industrialization. These are not just additions to the report. They reflect the ever-changing policy priorities of our country and a growing recognition that innovation must not only be measured in academic areas only, but also in the sectors that drive economic growth and improve people's lives. This report does not stand or exist in a vacuum. It is designed to speak directly to the strategic priorities that shape our nation and our country. It aligns with the National Development Plan, which set clear targets for R&D investment and position innovation as a driver for inclusive growth. It speaks to the STI Data plan, which aligns the 5 systemic goals for building a coherent, capable, and a future-ready national system of innovation. It connects to the medium-term development plan, which identified 3 priorities for our country, and that is inclusive growth, poverty reduction, and building a capable state. Each edition of this report has sought to answer one fundamental question: how is our innovation system contributing to these national goals? Measurement itself is not an end, it is a tool. It is a tool for understanding, it is a tool for accountability, and it is a tool for action. When we measure inputs, we ask whether our investment is enough. When we measure flows, we ask whether knowledge is moving between institutions. When we measure outputs, we ask whether our investment is approaching results. When we measure impact, we ask if these results translate to economic growth, job creation, and improved lives. The indicators in this report are selected to help us answer these questions. Not once, but every year, they allow us to track progress over time, to compare ourselves with our peers globally, and to identify the gaps where we are falling short. In closing, Honourable Minister, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Indicators Report, it is not the final word. It is a starting point, it's a baseline, it is a call for action. I thank the Minister for his unwavering support for NACI's work I thank the Council. I thank the acting CEO. Where's my acting CEO? Ms. Annalyn Morgan. I thank the NACI team, and I thank the experts for their dedication and contribution and commitment, and all the stakeholders in the national system of innovation who have made contributions and continue to do so on a regular basis to ensure that we produce this report annually. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manyoni, for that warm welcome and also for your reflections on the report. I think they're quite pointed and speak to the fact that the STI indicators report is effectively the heartbeat of our national system of innovation. And that really paves the way to our keynote address. So, distinguished delegates, please welcome the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Blade Nzimande, to deliver the keynote address on the 2025 STI Indicators Report. Minister, you're welcome.
Professor Khan, our Program Director, thank you very much. Let me greet our Acting Director General, Ms. Gugu Zwane, our science expert, Dr. Derek Swartz, Chairperson of the NACI Council, Mr. Tilson Manyoni, and all other councillors of NACI. Acting CEO of NACI, Ms. Annalyn Morgan. Dr. Dlamini, our host. We have to recognize you, otherwise we may not be very welcome in this place in future. As we must stand. Heads of our science and academic institutions, I've seen a few of them around here. Senior government officials, leaders of business and industry, esteemed guest speakers, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored to speak to you today on the occasion of the formal launch of the 2025 Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators Report. By way of context, our country's 2019 White Paper on Science, Technology and Innovation mandates our department's entity, the National Advisory Council on Innovation, to monitor and evaluate the performance of our country's national system of innovation. In fulfillment of this task, NACI produces the annual STI Indicators Report. This report is one of the essential tools we use to diagnose the state of our national system of innovation, and it provides us with an evidence-based picture of our country's innovation system, and in particular the strengths and weaknesses of our system, and of course the areas that require urgent attention and action. But this report, it would be wrong to just characterize it as a collection of statistics. Yes, it is about that, but it is about more than that at the same time. It's because it at the same time is an instrument to inform policy, guide investments, and enhance the role of science, technology, and innovation as a catalyst for industrialization and improved quality of life. Given the implications of this report for national priorities and the strategic direction of our country last year, I'm pleased to say I tabled this report in Cabinet. That's why we delayed a bit to release it, because I had to wait for the Cabinet calendar to allow me to present it there. And I am pleased to say that Cabinet approved it for public release and noted it as one of our very important documents. This year, we are launching the STI Indicators Report under the theme Bridging the Gap, using STI data to drive South Africa's economic future. In a way, what this theme does, it places science, technology, and innovation at the center of our economy and economic development, which is something that is very important. Because all countries that are developing, growing very fast, you measure them by how much they've invested in science, technology, and innovation. The more they invest, the better they perform. I was saying to the acting CEO when she was briefing me, Annelien, that perhaps we need to produce a history of science, technology, and innovation, especially post-Second World War, and look in particular, not exclusively, at the role of business in the history of the evolution of science, technology, and innovation. Because without industry actively participating and also investing in science, technology, and innovation, we are not going to make much progress, as a matter of fact. And this theme signals that STI indicators cannot remain abstract measurements. They must actively shape STI policy, and most importantly, they must give substance to government's mission to achieve inclusive economic growth for all. I always emphasize this, and I've said as a department we must fully embrace the idea of contributing not just to growth, but to inclusive growth. Because not all growth is inclusive, as a matter of fact. Some of the growth can happen very fast, but with only a tiny section of the population developing. So the issue of inclusive growth is at the heart of what we are seeking to do. Now, what are some of the highlights then of the 2025 Science, Technology, and Innovation Report? Let me just reflect on some of these. The report presents us with a complex picture of a nation achieving bold milestones while facing critical challenges. In the area of higher education, which is an important part of the science, technology, and innovation family, if you like, our universities are becoming more representative and more capable. We have achieved gender parity among academic staff. For the first time since 2022, women became 52% of academic staff in South Africa. Black academic staff, and this is very impressive, increased from 27% to 62% over the same period, 2010 and 2022. This matters because it stimulates a more diverse research community and an ecosystem to address a wider range of research questions in order to address our country's challenges. The percentage of permanent staff holding PhDs increased from 35.7% in 2010 to 52.5% in 2022. Although Professor Kheti, former VC of UCT, I'm very concerned, and I've asked Naki to do something about this. I hope I'm not out of order if I raise this. I'm going to be raising it wherever it matters. There is an industry that seems to be growing, and it's a perverse industry for our system, of people writing PhDs for others. It gets advertised, we'll do your literature review. My special advisor, Umar, was complaining to me, please, Minister, give me more time, more time. My literature review is troubling me. I say, well, if you pay me a little, I'll be your small course supervisor and teach you how to do a literature review. But there are people who are saying, we're going to do the literature review for you. Not only that, we're going to analyze your indicators for you, and we're going to write the PhD for you. What's the point of having a PhD? What's the point of having a PhD if all those things are going to be done for you? There are people I understand who have turned it into their business to write masters and PhDs for others. I have said to Naki, can you please investigate this matter? Working with the Department of Higher Education and Training. I'm not saying this because I already have a PhD. We want more PhDs, but what's the point if they are not genuine? What's the point? And also, what's going to be the image of our own system in the world? One of the precious things we hold as a country is our qualifications and the quality of our qualifications. So I hope you will support me in this. Even those who don't have PhDs, I hope they will support me when I also say this. Because we want you to do your PhDs, but genuine PhDs. But I'm pleased that PhDs, academic staff, permanent staff, holding PhDs increased from 35.7% in 2010 to 52.5%. We are more than half now. And we are moving towards the national target of 75%, at least for traditional universities. Related to this, our research is becoming more competitive, influential, and globally connected. South Africa produced 25,775 scientific articles in 2023, ranking 29 globally, and second in Africa behind Egypt. So sometimes, you have this penchant for negative narratives about our country. We are the highest in terms of the worst indicators. We are not saying we don't have challenges, but all that tends to bury this good progress that we are also making, not only on this front, but particularly on this front of national system of innovation that I'm talking about. Beyond quantity, our research makes an impact, by the way. South African publications consistently receive more citations than the global average. It's a very important achievement, that. Meaning the world is reading and building on the country's knowledge production. This influence is strongest in health sciences, humanities, and natural sciences, fields where South African expertise shapes global understanding and knowledge production, knowledge contribution. We have a lot to share with the world, and even to teach the world. I don't think we should be ashamed of that. And I always tell people we're a very talented nation, by the way. Having joined science, I just became aware how talented we are. There's other talent we have, by the way. The Springboks, Amapiano. That's our talent, the creativity that we have as a country, including here in science. We've got very good scientists in our country. We don't have enough of them. That's the big challenge that we have. In the area of venture capital investment, this is also exciting. The value of venture capital investments nearly tripled from 1.1 billion in 2022 to 3.3 billion in 2023. It's a big increase. It's important because this is one area where we have a challenge. I took a team of vice chancellors, our science executives, to the Silicon Valley. When was that, Professor Muswetsa? You are younger than me, eh? 2023, yeah. My mind also begins to lose certain information. And we met venture capitalists in the United States. I hadn't quite known much about that. And most of them were from South Africa, but they are working in the Silicon Valley. Venture capitalists are those who are willing to fund early startups, willing to invest to fund early startups. And we don't have that here in South Africa. That it increased like this, it means we are on the right track, but we still need much more. I'm sitting, by the way, with projects that we support in our department that we can't scale up because we battle with investment. I'll just cite two. In Limpopo, I understand there is a new innovation which is producing toilets that do not use water, but they're not pit toilets. And when I asked this person, how do you do that? He says, we are trying to adapt the technology in aeroplane toilets to be used generally because we are a water-scarce country. Then I was at Orlando Stadium the other day. I may as well declare I'm an Orlando Pirates fan. I don't hide that. I know my colleagues, ministers, they hide it. I'm Kaizer Chiefs. I don't hide it. I'm Orlando Pirates. So I met this young man. When I'd seen him a couple of times, he says, hey, Minister, I must come and see you. I've got an interest in your department. And I say, in what? He says, I've got a new technology. I think this technology is going to work. I would like you to advise. And I said, what is the technology about? He said, it's actually to deal and end period pains for women. I said, wow. Where is Babu? I know we are a Chiefs fan, but we must follow that guy. He did biochemistry at the University of Limpopo, because I'm very keen actually to see, test, not on me obviously, if this really works. I hope that. We've got lots of other potential innovations, but we can't scale them up. So the issue of venture capitalists, Mr. Azajame, it's a critical area for our country. We need venture capitalists who are bold to invest in our innovation. It increased, as I have said. We are also making meaningful strides in digital governance. This I find a very interesting part of the report, because we are so critical ourselves. Yesterday we were sitting in the cabinet. There is no cabinet that goes past without being critical on ourselves as government. Why are we not making progress on e-government these days? Now, I'm pleased that our e-government index improved from 0.74 in 2022 to 0.86 in 2024. We now rank 40th globally and second amongst BRICS nations, behind only China. More citizens can access services online, and government is slowly becoming more responsive, more transparent, and more efficient. We are leading the rest of the African continent in digital connectivity. For example, we've got 45.3 million internet users and 74.7 internet penetration rate. We are leaders in digital connectivity on the continent. Our mobile connectivity score of 6.95 out of 100 tops Africa. More South Africans have access to the digital tools that enable innovation, education, and economic participation. Our manufacturing sector is contributing to employment. In 2023, formal manufacturing employment was 11%, higher than in 2014. This is especially evident in high-tech industries. Behind this growth are families with breadwinners, young people starting careers, and communities with more stability. We are making also significant strides in agricultural innovation. Except Dr. Dlamini was very unhappy that as government, we are forced to import vaccines for foot and mouth disease. That's a capacity we used to have before. We need to go back and actually have this capacity. Although I must say we're also making progress in agricultural innovation, with plant breeders' rights applications surging from 263 in 2022 to 318 in 2023, placing South Africa among the global top 5 for agricultural innovation. But we are still importing vaccines for foot and mouth. No. Not when my department and my entities exist, for example, that we should still be doing this. Plant breeders' rights are like patents for new plant varieties. They protect the intellectual property of those who develop better and more productive crops. South African researchers are developing new varieties that the world wants. That's progress. We are also making a significant advance in health innovation. Despite economic pressures, investment in health research has more than doubled, from 44.7 billion in 2013-2014 to 10 billion in 2022-2023. Health research now accounts for nearly a quarter of all South African R&D expenditure, demonstrating a clear national commitment to tackling disease, improving treatments, and building healthier communities. I'm still hopeful that South Africa will come with the first breakthrough, either in the prevention or curing of cancer. I don't know, something tells me that we've got capacity that actually we could make very significant breakthroughs. Just looking at the Nuclear Medicine Research Institute, NUMERI, at Steve Biko, it's the only facility of its kind in the African continent. I'm very hopeful because we are a talented nation. It's nice to be Minister of Science in a talented nation. What frustrates me is that we are not doing things quick enough and fast enough to be able to get this. Now, health research now accounts for nearly a quarter of all South African R&D expenditure, demonstrating a clear national commitment to tackling disease, improving treatments, and building healthier communities. We are also breaking new ground in the area of space. This is one that also excites me a lot. In 2023, we launched 9 objects into space, and our universities, particularly the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, with its nano-satellite program, are developing the skills and technology that will underpin a future space industry. This is high-tech industrialization in action. By the way, for those who do not know, the African Union established some years ago what they call a Pan-African Virtual University. And each region of the continent was given a particular speciality. For instance, West Africa, I think, was given social sciences and humanities. Am I right? and we were given space science. We have just had some challenges in terms of getting this off the ground. But the good news is that we are the main country that is training space scientists for the continent, as South Africa. Now, notwithstanding the commendable progress I've just highlighted, the report also draws our attention to the areas of weakness that require urgent attention and action. I'll just mention a few as I go on. Our global competitiveness is declining. According to the Institute for Management Development World Competitiveness, our ranking fell from number 60 in 2024 to 64 in 2025. And according to the Global Innovation Index, we dropped from 59th in 2023 to 69th in 2024. We have to attend to this, and science, technology, and innovation is the answer. Not the only, but is one of the key answers for us to be able to improve our global competitiveness. Our gross expenditure on research and development, this should concern all of us, as a percentage of gross domestic product is falling. Prior to COVID, we were at 0.76 R&D spend as a percentage of GDP. Now we are 0.61, 2022, 2023. We've gone down. And the investment of business in R&D remains weak. It concerns me deeply that the business sector's contribution to R&D fell from 45.9% in 2013-14 to a low of 30% in 2020-21. Dr. Jamin, we have brought you here. We'll offer you lunch after this as well. I'm emphasizing that because there's no free lunch. There is a reason why people like yourselves who are closer to business and other business people here, we bring them here. It's because we need your investment in science, technology, and innovation in our country. For the sake of no country will move forward, as I have said, if it does not invest in this. And business is the biggest beneficiary, by the way, in advances in technology. And no free lunch. That's why we are here, to help us. Send out this message and be our champion of science, technology, and innovation. Our chair of NACI has started a very important initiative. He's brought together business under the banner of science, technology, and innovation. It's a very important platform, which I wish it can actually grow throughout the country. Something I discovered in China. They've got science, technology, and innovation structures from national level to municipalities. In a municipality, innovators, companies that are engaged in innovation and so on, and government, they sit, they've got a structure, which is like a forum of people embarking, right up to local level. We can see the results of that. We are having our National Science Technology Forum, NSTF. I would like that we replicate this NSTF right up to localities. Starting with the big metros, by the way, because there's lots of R&D that's happening around here. But we have no idea, we've never brought people together who are investing here in Tshwane to say, what are you doing? There is an innovation hub here. I'm sorry, it looks like it's a saw in my eye. Because you can see there's hardly anything happening there. There is something, but it's far from enough. So if we could also, the challenge is to take science, technology, and innovation to the lowest level. At the moment, we exist here at national, nothing at provincial, though there are activities at provincial, nothing at local in terms of being organized, though there are STI activities there. Our patent registration is declining. That's what the report tells us. You can look at the details. Let me not go into them now, because I'm trying to mind my time as well. We are importing more knowledge than we are exporting. That's what this report is telling us. There's nothing wrong in importing knowledge, but the balance, there must be a balance. Our deficit mustn't be too big, because we also need to be producing intellectual property. For instance, we paid the rest of the world $1.6 billion US in 2023 for the rights to use their intellectual property. We received only $167 million US for our own IP. Definitely unhealthy. Now, there is nothing wrong, as I say, in importing knowledge, but we need to be knowledge producers. Our human resources are misaligned. I wasn't aware of this statistic, though I was Minister of Higher Education and Training. It shows that I've closed half my brain on that score. But that our universities, I shouldn't be surprised about this, produced 225,702 graduates in 2022, but only 29% were in STEM fields. Only 29%. That's a reflection, by the way, of the situation in our schooling system. We have big tasks together to defeat this thing of fear of science and technology, especially amongst black communities in our country. Some principals, they say, no, you can't be doing pure maths, come to maths literacy, so that I raise my percentage of matric passes. But we are depriving the country of a very important source for its STI. I'm very glad now, by the way, Dr. Swartz, that I'm no longer in higher education. I don't have to deal with these young adults who have got huge energies. They can drive you absolutely crazy. Now, my new constituency is primary school kids, because we must start them there, not to be afraid of science and technology. Government has made a good decision. Early childhood development is no longer the responsibility of social development, it's now the responsibility of basic education. So we've got a huge opportunity to start our youngsters at that level. Another concern is that our researchers are being stretched thin. Listen to this statistic. The supervisory burden has intensified due to postgraduate enrollment growth of 2.6%, outpacing permanent staff growth, which is only 1.8%. So we are taking more postgrad, but we are not increasing our supervisory capacity, for instance. Maybe that's why even these sources who are writing PhDs for others are exploiting that gap, that we don't have enough supervisory capacity. I was saying to Annelien again, shame, Annelien, you work for me. I pity you, because you must go and get advice from Professor Sarah Muswetsa. Because always when I see you, I've got a new idea. You know? Just like I do with her. As I was saying to you, the presidential PhD program that we are launching, we must expose those PhD students or postdoc to some kind of mentoring on how to be good supervisors of masters and PhDs. We must embed that. In fact, our entities can do a lot of that. SACNASP, ASAF. Shouldn't we be starting a program, even here in South Africa, to mentor PhD supervisors? I've seen a number of books about the relationship between PhD graduates and their supervisors, you know? It's a nightmare in many respects. Let's take that up. As the science community, I think we have a responsibility to do that. Partly to address this thing of shortage of supervisory capacity. Our local innovation, I've said, is falling, and our manufacturing output is stagnant. We are employing more people, interestingly, in the manufacturing, but they produce less. Now, I don't want to sound like a hard-nosed capitalist, which wants to squeeze every ounce out of workers. But what does this mean? That we've employed more a bit, although the manufacturing sector from 1994 has declined enormously. And we need to rebuild it. And you can't rebuild it without science, technology, and innovation. In conclusion, before I bore you to death, 2025 STI indicators seeks to provide us with an account of the state of our NSI and also guides us to implement evidence-based policy interventions. At a more fundamental level, this report also aims to stimulate further investigation and research into selected topics of national interest and for us to understand their implications, our national priorities and the future of our country. As the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, we're very generous. But I was asking the other day, do we have a Saki chair on science, technology, and innovation? We don't. We give out Saki chairs to everybody except us. Don't we need a focused study on our system? Working with NACI, you have a resource for information, and so on. Now, NRF is not here. Is there someone from the NRF here? Where are they? Oh, yeah. You heard me. You heard me, okay? Yes. Ake siyeke lento yokuthi sihambe sipha abantu thina siyincishe. No. Giving a Saki chair to the HSRC doesn't fall within that category. It falls within the category of the Saki chairs we need. By launching this report, we are therefore not only inviting you to a critical conversation on its findings, we are also making a call to you to join us in forming a compact that will be geared towards translating the findings of this report into coherent, sustainable policy actions across key areas of national development. It is now my honor and privilege to declare the 2025 STI Indicators Report officially launched. I wish you a productive session further and look forward to the outcome of your deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for that comprehensive and compelling keynote address on our 2025 STI Indicators Report. Your articulation of the policy context and the strategic importance on the outcomes of the report, I think, really set the tone for discussion. But I really liked a couple of aspects. How you put people on the spot. I think it's important. I think it's important to be accountable, and it's important to be able to contribute. That's very nice. And also the idea of a compact. The Science, Technology and Innovation Indicators Report, as I said, it's the heartbeat of our national system of innovation. And I think today we all agree to a social compact that we're going to turn this into a way of life for our country. Yes, so thank you very much for that. Now, the way we've designed the morning is that we've had an exposition of the report, and then what we're going to have is some reflections. And after the reflections, we're going to have some debate. And so to take us through some key highlights and to reflect, I'd like to invite the acting CEO of NACI, Ms. Annelien Morgan, to the podium. Please, Annelien.
I think I'm tall enough, Prof. Kana. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Good morning, Honorable Minister, Chairperson, NACI Council members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So we're not going to try and repeat what the Minister has just presented, but we just want to show you a visual picture of what the Minister has just spoken about in terms of the key highlights of the report. So let's just get this right here. Do I point it up? Where's the technicians? We just need some assistance here with the pointer. Oh, there we go. Okay, it doesn't seem like your pointer is working. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So as indicated, I'm not going to try and repeat the Minister's speech, because the Minister's speech was really to highlight the key aspects of the report, but we're just giving a visualization of what the Minister's spoken about to set the scene for the panel discussion that will come here to unpack this and discuss this. As you saw, Minister spoke about our competitiveness, how South Africa's competitiveness has declined comparatively to the rest of the world. But when you unpack this, why we're declining in terms of competitiveness, it's related, for example, to government inefficiencies, such as business legislation, public finance, institutional frameworks. But also, if you look at infrastructure issues of roads, ports, electricity, digital infrastructure. We know that the country, through the presidential program on Vulindlela, trying to deal with issues of logistics and improve our infrastructure in the country, these are all the efforts government is doing to build the business confidence in our country. But we also see that the economic performance of the country, including domestic economic growth and employment, is currently very sluggish. And we see that and these are key foundations and conditions for competitive, innovation-driven economy. We see that not all is gloom. We see that we ranked quite well in terms of our tax policy. We've got an efficient tax system, but that doesn't inspire confidence in our long-term investment. So we need more inspiration in terms of long-term investment. So we also see that when we compare to our other BRICS countries, that we are also not doing very well within the global south. Minister spoke about the decline in R&D investment. We see that this has declined. We're currently sitting at 0.61%. And we see that this is stagnating in terms of where we were pre-COVID, as the Minister mentioned. But we also see that government is investing more than business. The business investment in R&D is declining, and we see more investment by government. And we see that in industrialized economies, it's supposed to be the other way around. Private sector are supposed to be the main drivers of investment in research and development and innovation. Minister reflected also on the human resources aspect, and we saw the numbers in terms of the only 29% of university graduates were in the STEM fields. And we see that this is an undersupply in terms of the demand side, in terms of what our economy needs. But we also look deeper within the TVET sector, where we see that we have, for every 100 students that starts engineering pathway, only 38 of that 100 finishes within that pathway. So this is a really concerning factor for us, and we are doing more in terms of investigation in this area. We spoke about the issues of transformation in the academic sector, and we see that that's more academic staff in terms of black staff, but also more in terms of PhD holders within our academia. So that's a positive for us. And this also comes at the back end of the historic Transformation Summit, which the Minister hosted last year at NACI in March 2025, where we're looking at transformation within the NSI. We know that we don't have dedicated indicators to track transformation in the NSI. And this is work that NACI has started as the outcomes of the Transformation Summit to see how do we develop these indicators to be able to track transformation in the NSI. Because often we see transformation in the NSI as a lip service. We say that we transform, but there's no real transformation that's happening within the NSI. And Minister spoke about the supervisory burden, and I think this is the biggest problem that we are facing, and hence we are doing the study now with CHE. We've just initiated a study with CHE on the issues of outsourcing of master's and PhD thesis and dissertation, and we want to see what are the key factors contributing to that. Minister spoke about the issues of commercialization, that we are also lagging behind in that area. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that. I think importantly, this is a new area that we've started tracking within the report, is our innovation within the local level. Minister spoke about how do we make sure we decentralize issues of innovation at the local level? How do we build regional innovation systems in our country? And we see the service delivery issues that we are currently grappling with. But through the district development model, it is important that we mainstream innovation within the local level. And I think this is a very important index that we have as a country that we are tracking. I also mentioned, Minister, when I discussed with the colleagues, that this index in its own is an innovation from us as South Africa, because we actually developed this index to track innovation within the local level. So we shouldn't take it for granted. It's an innovation, it's in itself at the policy level as a policy framework. So we need to see how do we work with the rest of our neighbors on this. We spoke about the digital divide, that yes, as much as we have improved on e-government services, but largely a lot of people are still not connected because of the high cost of connectivity, the issues of infrastructure. So these are the issues that we need to deal with. So in conclusion, what are the key messages? We are saying global competitiveness is declining, government efficiency, infrastructure, and economic performance all ranked at the bottom 10. R&D investment has stagnated. Business R&D share has fallen significantly, and it remains far from the national target. The NDB target of 2030 is 1.5%. By 2030, we should have reached 1.5% of R&D investment, and we are 5 years away from that. Skills are misaligned. You saw the data that was just presented in terms of the decline of our STEM graduates, but also the TVET, which is underproducing in terms of technicians and artisans. We also see the commercialization gap is widening in terms of patents that have halved and high-tech exports that are falling. And lastly, the digital government has strengthened, but inclusion lags behind. Minister spoke about inclusive growth. We can say we are doing well, but are we inclusive in the way we do things? And I think that word inclusive is quite critical in how we vote. We also say that we are amongst the best in terms of the BRICS countries, in terms of e-government, and also majority of households still remain excluded. So these are the key messages from what is being highlighted in the minister's speech. This was just a visualization of the data, because sometimes we relate more when we see things, and this sets the scene for the panel that will now join us to take this conversation further on the key themes. Thank you, Prof. Basvish. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting CEO, for that excellent synthesis. I think as our Acting CEO and Honourable Minister have articulated, the true value of the report is not only revealed in the reading, but rather in the interpretation and in the application. And so how do these indicators translate into real-world challenges and opportunities? So to explore this further, we're now going to move to our panel discussion. So I would like to invite Dr. Mzwandile Madikizela to the stage to moderate the session. Dr. Madikizela brings a wealth of experience and is perfectly placed to guide our distinguished panelists through the multifaceted implications of the report, exploring the macroeconomic environment, commercialization, human capabilities, governance, and inclusive innovation. Dr. Madikizela, the floor is yours. I would also like to invite all the panelists. Please come up, take a seat. There are some microphones.
There you are. Thank you very much. Mr. Manyoni, I thought I was not going to need this. I thought I was slightly taller than you, but it looks like I was over-ambitious. Good morning, Minister. Let me start with you, and also Mr. Manyoni, the chairperson of NACI. And good morning all to the stakeholders. This is your session now. In his closing remarks, the minister said we now need to engage in critical thinking. So we need to have a strategic conversation. Having listened to the findings of the reports, the comments, quite insightful comments that were made by the minister, pointing us to the things that we need to pay attention to. And the comment that was made by Mr. Manyoni, who said it is now time for action. I recall, Minister, when I was a board member at TIA, you once said to TIA that you need now to be solution-driven. So that's stuck in my head, that we don't need to restate the problems now. We need to come up with actionable solutions. My task is very simple. The people who matter actually are the panel members who are sitting next to me. Mine is just to facilitate the discussion. Now, Annelien has set the scene very, very well. Both the minister and has set the scene very well for what we are going to be discussing. And to do that, the report covers a lot of issues. We can't deal with them all. But to really focus on a few critical issues that we need to pay attention to. As the program director has mentioned, we picked up a few themes, in fact, 5 themes. The first one being the macroeconomic environment as an enabler, as a foundation for innovation. In other words, innovation can prosper and thrive if there is a suitable and conducive environment. The second topic, which is always it's a perennial problem for us, it is commercialization, financing and commercialization. The third one is the skills issue, which we have titled the future-proofing of human capabilities. Because to innovate, you need human talent. You need talent that is going to be engaged in innovation. The people we train must not be driving taxis. They must be actively involved in innovation. The next topic is building a coherent and data-driven national system and innovation. And the last topic is, which the minister enhanced, and I'm glad he did that, because one of the statement I like, which the UNDP uses, is that we must not leave anyone behind. We must all be inclusive, that everyone benefits from the science and technology and the knowledge that we produce. So those are the 5 topics that we are going to be engaged in. To do that, we have assembled quite an impressive panel who are going to lead the conversation, building on the comments that the minister made and also the findings which Annelien has brought to our attention. I think Annelien laid the foundation quite nicely, because those are the topics that we're going to be focusing on. The way I propose that we go about this is as follows. I will ask we have allocated each panel member a topic to deal with, depending on their experience and expertise. And I'll introduce them shortly. So what I propose is that we will ask them a set of questions. And to avoid the interruption of the flow of the conversation, I would prefer that you hold on to your questions until at the end, because there will be a question and answer session. So jot down your questions. If you want, if there are any points of clarification, or if you want the panelists to expand, you'll get a chance at the end of the session. Now, let me introduce our panelists. And I won't be able to do justice to their very rich bios. So in the interest of time, I'm going to summarize them. Starting with a familiar face, Dr. Jamil, who has been, over the years, been quite a very active member within the science and technology space. He is an esteemed economist. I'm sure most of us have seen him on TV commenting. He is the director of and the chief economics at the company econometrics, which is an independent research and focusing consulting. He is well positioned to deal with the area of the macroeconomic environment and how it enhances or inhibits innovation. And as the minister said, you've got to earn your lunch. The second panelist is Dr. Thulani Dlamini, who is also our host as the CEO of the CSIR. Dr. Dlamini has an interesting history with the CSIR, because he joined the CSIR coming from SASO, had a stint at the CSIR, and went back to SASO, and then came back to the CSIR, because I think he has an affinity for this organization. And he came back, and it is now leading it, and I regard the CSIR as one of the premier scientific organizations. He has extensive experience in research and commercialization, but he has got a unique and a very, very unusual experience. Because of his experience in industry, he brings that industry perspectives and links it with the public sector. And he's going to be dealing with the issue of commercialization and touching on the intellectual property and how we turn our knowledge into tangible economic and social impact. The next panelist, I hope I'm going to pronounce her surname correctly, is Professor Sudial. Good, thank you. He is the executive officer of the Academy of Science of South Africa, which is known as ASAF. Her groundbreaking research was on understanding. He helped us to understand the human prehistory of the South African Africa. Not only is he a distinguished researcher and a scholar, he is also a recipient of the National Order of Mapungubwe, which is quite an achievement. Given his extensive experience as a distinguished scholar, he's going to provide us with a critical perspective on developing human capital, which we know is one of our shortcomings. The next panelist is Ms. Khomotso Matjila, who is a chief director at the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, where she is responsible for monitoring and evaluation. One of the key roles which she oversees are the R&D surveys, which we rely on. It's a critical statistics which measures our performance and investment in science. She also In fact, that is where I first met her. She also oversees the Business Innovation Survey. She has got a wealth of experience in financial analysis, having also worked at the South African Reserve Bank, and she brings a unique perspective on building a coherent, data-driven national system of innovation. And she's going to emphasize and tell us more about the monitoring and evaluation, including the governance of the system. The last but not the least, right at the end, is Dr. Tulim Tetwa, who is a founder of a company called the CEO of a company, Memeza Shout. Don't worry, she will tell you more about Memeza Shout. She's a social entrepreneur, but previously was involved in software development. It's interesting how she founded this company, because it was out of a very sad situation where a member of her family was a victim of crime. And instead of sitting down, she said, what can I do about it? She works, Minister, for your interest. She works with the communities, but with communities, focusing on what you said, which is inclusive innovation, a topic that is also close to me. Now that you know who my panel members are, I want us to get started. My first panel, who I want to respond, is Dr. Jamin, and I want him to bring the macroeconomic perspective, which is his area of speciality. A national system of innovation exists, is shaped by the macroeconomic environment. If the environment is not favorable, it will affect it negatively. In other words, a poor macroeconomic environment is going to stifle and inhibit innovation. And Dr. Jamin, I want to get your thoughts on how the macroeconomic environment is shaping our innovation performance. As the acting CEO has said, and we all know this, the business R&D expenditure has been declining. In fact, it has declined from 49% in 2014 to 35% in 2022, which is quite a sharp decline. On the other hand, we have another problem, which our decline in competitiveness, which we now currently, in 2022, we stood at 60 out of 67 countries, which is not a good place to be in. And in fact, our neighbors are now ahead of us. What I want you to do and to share your thoughts is, do you think, my glasses are failing me a bit, do you think that the weak economic growth, infrastructure deficits, that's better, and policy uncertainty are directly impacting the investment climate and discouraging firms from committing towards long-term investment in R&D? And I also want you to expand and say how to these microeconomic factors, because most of the time we've been looking at inhibitors, why the R&D performance in R&D by business is low from a micro perspective. Can you please respond to that?
Thank you very much, Dr. Madikizela. Thank you very much, Dr. Madikizela, and for this opportunity. You will see that, and I want to exploit my privilege right here to make one general point about the Science and Technology Indicators Report. As you can see, when I began being involved in it, I had black hair. This indicators report has developed over the last 15, 20 years that I've been associated with it. I have always found it to be an incredibly valuable source of information for the country. I have been extremely frustrated over many years that so few people in South Africa have actually recognized that such a report actually exists. I was appalled some years ago when a member of the National Development Plan, one of the commissioners, told me that they didn't know anything about it. I said, but all the information is in this report. So I'm absolutely thrilled, Minister, to have heard you this morning giving such a succinct analysis of the findings and recognizing the importance of this report. I think it needs to go out far more broadly, and especially to penetrate not only the public sector and the university sector, and I'm thrilled to see Dr. Morris here from my alma mater at Wits attending, but I think it needs to be publicized within the broader private sector to start taking advantage of it and to understand some of the messages that come across. And one of the important messages that you alluded to was the perennial decline in the level of investment in R&D. I remember when I was project leader, we were at 0.72% of GDP. And the intention was to push that up to 1.5% of GDP. Instead, I see we are now at 0.61% of GDP. And one of the important contributors towards this decline has been the decline of the business sector. One needs to understand what forces have actually brought this about. And in particular, I could show you a graph which shows that South Africa's macroeconomic performance relative to the rest of the world, we were matching the rest of the world, the overall average, very well from about 1994 all the way to 2013. And suddenly from 2013-14, we see South Africa's performance starting to fade behind that of the global economy. And it is no coincidence that all these innovation indicators have also been in, not all of them, but a lot of them have been in decline, especially R&D expenditure. And a lot of that has to do with the declining confidence in the macroeconomy. How has that come about? Unfortunately, our political history led to a transformation of our economy in the early part of the last decade, whereby this phenomenon of state capture started taking hold, and resources that should have been going towards development and research started being diverted to through various means into the pockets of a handful of individuals. And one of the vehicles through which that was effected was through basically emaciating our institutions and especially our state-owned enterprises. And if you look at a graph of capital investment in the country, you will see that although the business sector has not reduced its investment overall, it's reduced it in R&D, but at the heart of the decline of capital investment, which has taken us from 19% of GDP to 14% of GDP over the past decade in terms of capital investment, has been the tremendous fall of investment by SOEs, because they've run out of money. That money was taken away from them. And that's had a knock-on effect in causing a decline in the manufacturing sector and leading to the deindustrialization of the South African economy more generally. At the heart of it has also been the fact that a lot of the systems put in place in order to facilitate the state capture involved over-regulation of the economy. And that has stifled a lot of small business, especially small business activity. Big businesses are able to cope with the regulations. They have dedicated teams to do that. Small businesses do not. And we've seen this perennial decline in the level of innovation, especially at the small business level due to over-regulation. And then the second leg of this that is going to be dealt with in a moment on another, but the minister spent quite a lot of time on it, and he's absolutely correct. The deterioration in some of our educational outcomes, especially our fear of maths and science. And I would go further. Minister, you alluded to this being a problem with the black population being too scared of maths. No, I've got grandchildren. I see it in the white population as well. It's something that has to change in this country. And a lot of it has to also, though, go back to, you mentioned the great benefits of emphasizing primary school development and, in particular, early childhood development. And I would say that is absolutely critical because due to the ravages of apartheid, we have seen a destruction of the social fabric of the majority of people in this country, so that you have only 31% of the young children of today living with two parents at home. And not having parents to supplement the educational system effectively is a critical element in why we are not developing enough skills, especially in not only in maths and science, in literacy, but also, obviously, that filters through into maths and science afterwards. But clearly, all these factors interact to result in this deterioration in... let's not get overly depressed. We're not talking about a collapse in our system. We're just talking about a relative underperformance that is extremely frustrating. The minister and I happened to be a part of a IDASA delegation to Poland in 1996, I remember so clearly. And we had discussions with the Polish delegations, and they were talking about their tremendous shift in their emphasis on education and science and technology and innovation, and also bringing in the private sector to assist them in that regard. And the sad part that frustrates me terribly, at that time, South Africa's economy was about a third larger than the Polish economy. Today, the Polish economy has a GDP of $1 trillion. South Africa's is 400 billion. They took advantage of these opportunities. We have been lagging behind by it. And unfortunately, as I say, the political framework had a lot to do with this. Sorry, I've hogged it for too long.
No, those are very valuable comments, and thanks for that. I just want to ask you one quick question. There are a lot of these macro factors, which some of which we have mentioned. My question is, and you have mentioned over-regulations. My question is, which one are the most critical, if you can? And which one should we really be paying attention to?
In terms of over-regulation?
No, generally speaking.
Well, I think it's been my hobby horse at the moment, education.
Education.
And especially early childhood development is absolutely critical. We've got a wealth of potential in this country to make this one of the greatest countries in the world. And yet I see young children just not being able to read and write properly.
Thank you.
That frustrates me. All our potential.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'll be mindful of that. My last question to you, Dr. Jamin, which I want us to move on, is that the total manufacturing exports grew from 12.5% in 2014, between 2014 and 2023. The question what I want you to address is, from a macroeconomic perspective, do you think that pattern of growth, which relies mainly on price increase, so this growth was driven by price increases, do you think that pattern is sustainable?
Clearly, it's not sustainable to keep growing through price increases, but one has to recognize that a lot of this had to do with the sharp depreciation of the rand associated with the declining governance and the deterioration in our economic performance relative to the rest of the world. And with the rand falling, obviously the prices tended to rise more steeply. Let me give you one piece of hope right now, and it's the biggest opportunity that is not being emphasized generally, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector right now. We are standing to reap a windfall from higher metal prices, especially gold and precious and platinum group metals prices. We have a wonderful opportunity right now to transform the mining sector, to let it start growing and being the driver of a new phase of economic growth in South Africa. If only we created an environment, a regulatory environment that was conducive to companies wanting to invest. The level of our mineral exploration has fallen by 90%, 90% in the last 2 decades. We can start turning that around dramatically.
Thank you, Dr. Jamin. I'm going to request you, in the interest of time, the program director has already warned me that you at least you try to keep your answers to 1 to 2 minutes. Dr. Lamini, I want to bring you in on the issue of commercialization, which you know is one of our perennial problems, but specifically respond to the issue of patents. Our patent performance is not good at all. In fact, between 2014 and 2018, it has declined by 50%, by almost 50%, which is a startling figure. So, from the CSIR's point of view, and since you work in the intersection between the public and the private sector, would you agree that this collapse signals a fundamental breakdown in the innovation value chain, in the pipeline that connects the research to the market?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matikizela, for that question. Indeed, I think the trend that you've indicated to us must concern all of us in terms of the decline with regards to the patent applications that are being filed by the country. However, I want to perhaps separate the issue of the number of patents that are filed from their relevance to the market being industry, society, as well as government. Because I think the issue of relevance is more of a qualitative measure than a quantitative measure. So I'll speak to those 2 points. I think if I look at the situation within the CSIR, over the past 7 years, we've actually seen the reverse of what you've mentioned. The number of priority patent applications that have been filed by the CSIR in the past 7 years has actually grown by 50%. But we've been very, very deliberate about this in terms of driving innovation that speaks to the sectors that we wish to serve. And I'll come to this point later on. I think what we've seen in the CSIR, though, is that the number of patents granted has declined, but that is just a timing issue because it can take up to 3 years, for a patent to go through the examination process. But if you look at the number of patents granted, or the number of priority patent applications that have been filed, There are a number of contributing factors, in my view, that contribute to this. One is the issue of cost. It's very expensive to maintain a patent portfolio, especially if you don't see a return on investment in that patent portfolio. I think as indicated earlier by the Minister and the Acting CEO, we are seeing a decline in terms of the expenditure on R&D in the country. And hence, I think the trend that we are seeing should not surprise us, because it speaks to what is actually happening in the system. Because we cannot expect to see an increase in priority patent applications, which leads to an increase in cost when the investment is declining. So I think we need to be honest with ourselves that, in fact, this trend speaks to, I think, what is happening within the system. Now, there's also another factor that is linked to this, which is the return on investment on the patent portfolios that we have. And I'll argue that I think for most of the institutions that we have in our country, the amount of money that we spend in maintaining the patent portfolios that we have, including the operating expenses, because we need people, far outweigh the return that we get from those patent portfolios. In fact, I would argue that perhaps NIPMO needs to do a study for us to give us an indication of the royalty income that we are generating as a country from the patents that we are filing. And I think that figure is not going to be very flattering. So these are the issues that we need to deal with. Now, what drives this? One, there's the issue of relevance in terms of what we have in the portfolio. Does it speak to the needs of the market? In our own organization, we've been very, very deliberate about creating this alignment. Then the second issue is that if you look at most of the patents that are filed, you'll find that the IP that sits within those patents is at a technology readiness level between 5 and 7. And that is pre-capital venture capital investment. And that you need to have investment in terms of de-risking that IP so that you can then have investment by venture capitalists who will take this to market. And that is the gap that we've really been struggling, in my view, to address as a country. This innovation chasm that we've talked about in the past, it exists today. We experience it in our own environment. I'll give an example. You know, one piece of IP that we are commercializing with a German partner, which has operations in South Africa, the total investment that we and the partner are working that are investing in the commercialization of this IP is just under R500 million. So that's the scale of investment that we require just to commercialize one piece of IP. Now, at a national level, you can imagine the significant investment that is required for us to be able to de-risk the IP that sits, across the system, so that it can then start to attract the venture capital investment that the minister spoke about, which has grown by 3 times. I think that's another contributing factor to the situation that we are seeing. And I'll argue that perhaps we need to find a way, not just to report on the numbers, but also to report on the monetization of the IP that exists within the system so that we can turn this around. A recommendation that I want to make, and I know we are constrained financially, Minister, is that shouldn't we perhaps consider having an engagement with the Department of Trade, Industry and Commerce, particularly around the offsets from multinational corporations, that a portion of that must be set aside for the commercialization of IP that sits within the system, because it would contribute to industrial development, to economic growth within the country as a possible avenue for us to address this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dlamini, for those powerful comments. Before I leave you, I want you to respond quickly to this question. Do you think that the decline in patent application is directly linked to the reduced private sector investment in R&D? Since you are since as a CSR and given your experience at SASOR, do you think that the patent decline could also be linked to this decline in R&D investment by business?
I think it is indeed. It is linked. But I think we need to understand what is happening, in my view, in terms of the structure of the South African economy, the global economy for that matter. But before I get to that, industry will invest in research and development with very clear outcomes in mind. It could be to sustain or gain a competitive advantage. It could be to grow into new areas. It could be to improve efficiency and reduce costs. So there are very, very clear outcomes that industry will be driving for. And of course, if you look at the ones that I've just mentioned now, you will think that these are imperatives for most industry players. And therefore, to see a decline in research and development seems to go against logic. Because you'll think that most private sector companies will be driving for these outcomes. I think what is happening currently in terms of the types of patents that are being filed, I think we are seeing a shift from large capital-intensive companies to more service and high-tech enterprises. This is the trend that we are seeing in the world globally. And these emerging industries are in areas such as communication technologies, artificial intelligence, the digitization that is happening, in automotive and across various sectors of the economy. Now, the main players in most of these areas, it's Asia, mainly China, and the US. We are not a major player as a country in terms of this. So I think we need to also look at the portfolio of innovation within our own system and ensure that we start to support in a very meaningful way these new and emerging areas of innovation. I think by then we'll start to see a shift in terms of the trend that you are speaking about with regards to the private sector investment in research and development. Because it then starts to speak to the earlier point of alignment of the innovation portfolio with what industry requires. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dlamini. It's interesting to hear from you that the innovation chasm is still a problem, which we have still not addressed. Let me bring in Professor Sudhir, who is going to talk about future-proofing of our human capabilities. As the acting CEO said, there has been the postgraduate enrollment has grown by 2.8% between 2013 and 2023. On the other hand, the staff complement has only grown by 1.9%. So this places pressure on what the minister said, on having that capacity to supervise, especially postgraduate students. My question is, I want to hear your thoughts on this, respond to this question. What immediate long-term strategies are needed to address this capacity crunch? And on top of that, and more specifically, what could be the role of your institution, ASAF, play in nurturing and supporting a pipeline of new and emerging academics who are entering the academic system, the university system?
Thank you very much. But before I start, I want to firstly use my opportunity on the panel to congratulate NACI. Actually, I don't think well sitting, so I'll stand if you give me the opportunity. To congratulate NACI on this, yet again, another wonderful STI indicator report. And as Professor Kana has said, it is the heartbeat of our landscape on science, technology, and innovation. And before I answer your questions directly, I also want to highlight what the minister said about the pipeline, where his starting point of the pipeline was not what comes out at the end, which what the academy sees with people who are established academics who become members, but actually at the foundation, starting at the primary school level. So that pipeline from starting your educational landmines till you go through high school, finish matric, undergraduate, postgraduate, if you do take it on, has got many, many challenges. And the point I want to make is when you answer the questions that you had about the numbers, etc., we have to look at the macro environment. We were very fortunate. 2 days ago, we had our second STEMI annual lecture. And we had Professor Benjamin Rosman from WITS talk to us on AI. And although the minister addressed the footprint of South Africa's digital footprint on the continent, what I haven't seen also in this report is where we're going with the future of AI. Professor Rosman left us with the statement that whether we like it or not, the future of our interventions are going to be very relevant to AI. So now coming back to the issue of the high unemployment, many of our graduates already are walking the streets without jobs. And in the presence of the minister, I want to raise this question, which I addressed to the DG when we had a bilateral with him towards the end of last year, is how do we bring it all together, and whose responsibility is it to ensure that the courses or career paths that people take lead to jobs? Is it the department? Is it higher education? Is it Department of Labor? I don't understand the intricacies of that, but I'm sure the minister from where he sits and others in the room may be able to pinpoint how we plan. We have a wonderful 10-year, the decadal plan and implementations, etc. We have beautiful statistics here. But the core is the reality of what's out there, namely that we have this very, very high unemployment and the fact that many of our graduates are still walking the streets without getting opportunities for employment. We heard from the business sector, etc. Now, with respect to the specific question on how we address the gap and the overload on supervisors, etc., it's a pity that the CEO of USAF, who was invited to be here today, is not present. But USAF has put together a mentorship program and has invited the academy to distribute this, which we have. But there are many mentorship programs that exist. And one of the things that we can do as an academy which is what our job is, to bring together various stakeholders to have a national dialogue, is to see to what extent these mentorship programs actually work. Okay. Because in addition to the problem of supervision, getting academics to put up their hands to be mentors is also a problem. So while we may punt these sexy terminology of mentorship programs and everything that we are doing, the actual implementation of it are hugely challenging. So I hope my foresight into what the environment is, which is already a very big challenge, which kind of summarizes what the STI indicators are talking about, is how we bring it together is very, very important, and whose responsibility it is to plan ahead. We heard the wonders of China, but China has a 100-year plan that they stick to. And in terms of bringing the thing to grassroots of this inclusive development plan, I'm very proud that the Academy starts at local level, not just national, local. We have projects at schools, we have projects at old age homes, projects with peoples with disability, youth programs, including supporting the Young Academy, who does wonderful work of bringing together that energy of the Young Academy that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I want us to move now to the next question, which is on the TVET college system. That system is primarily meant to produce technicians and artisans which are required by industry. And from the report, we saw that the completion rate is very low. It actually, at the N6 level of engineering, it actually stands at 38%. What kind of targeted intervention in curricular reform, funding, and career pathway development are most critical to increase both the quality and the quality of the STEM graduate, so that they can meet the demands of society, including industry?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely critical. And the way to start with it is to ensure that there are internships linked with the studies, and that the internships should link towards the job creation portfolio. So if we have a particular discipline that we're going, there should be a little bit more of an impetus to bring in the relevant job market partners from business and other sectors to provide these internships so that there's a kind of complementarity between the academic advancement and in TVET colleges, we're trying to create the trade, the hands-on. So the young individuals have opportunities of being niched in their discipline, so that when they come out with the diploma or the degree or whatever it is, there is a path that they can lead towards.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You've raised quite a very important point of internship. I've got personal experience on that because my son, who studied engineering, he actually got a job at the company at which he was an internship. And Minister, a program such as the Technology Station program is crucial for advancing the internship initiatives. Now let me come to Ms. Machila. Ms. Machila, the Department of Science and Technology and Innovation has adopted this mantra, which the Minister also mentioned, of placing science and technology and innovation at the center of government, education, industry, and society as a whole. So this requires innovation to be dealt with as a cross-cutting enabler, and not as a siloed portfolio. Now, to achieve this mission, what systemic reforms are required to achieve that vision? Can you please expand on that?
Thank you so much, Program Director, and thank you to Nagi for this opportunity. I think, Program Director, I just want to break the ice a little bit. Minister, you mentioned that there's not enough supervisory capacity in this field. I just want to give you accolades to say that you actually used evidence-based policy. You used evidence to make that statement, Minister, because in here we have, sorry Thabo, I'm going to expose you, my colleague Thabo Manyaka, who actually has done several studies. The past one passed with cum laude, and I actually he's studying another one now. And I said, Thabo, I've got an interesting topic for you to unpack for us. We've done an economic modeling to understand what is it that we need in terms of rent money to get to this 1.5% of jet to GDP by 2030. However, we are not able to say how and the when and the who must do in getting there. And I said, I've got a nice topic for you, Thabo, for your next studies. And he said, no, actually, I've submitted similar, something like that, on how we can improve our jet to GDP. But it was actually declined because there's not supervisors in those fields in the higher education. So I think maybe something to be taken up. Another last one on the breaking of the ice. I think, Minister, you said that you need to close that booming industry of people writing for others their thesis. I was just asking that before you close it. I'm looking at the panelists here, my distinguished panelists. Everywhere there's a doctor before them, and a prof. I'm feeling, yeah. So I was saying before you close. You close it, Minister. Maybe I'll talk to them in the corner there. You won't know how we did it, but yeah. All right, now back to the reality on the question that I've been asked about what are the reforms that we can put to pivot the NSI. So I'll focus on two branches or on this topic. There are main reforms that we need to think about. There are also sub-reforms, like sectoral, you can call it sub or sectoral reforms that are required, and some of the colleagues have actually mentioned here in the panel. The first one, that is the branch on the main reforms. There are currently 3 reforms that are happening in government. The first one is the reform around the gender. I'm sure you've all heard of it, on how we need to respond to gender issues, women and youth inclusion in all our interventions that we do. And the second one is about the climate change. If it hasn't come to you as a department, it is on its way. The third one, which is us now, is about STI, which is Science, Technology and Innovation Reform. Minister, we were able to actually highlight this as part of the main highlights, reforms in terms of the planning and budgeting frameworks of government, working together with the National Treasury and the DPME. Now, maybe let me focus on the STI because that's our bloodline, right? Let's forget a bit about the 2 others. So how we managed to do this, Minister, is that we actually had the task team that has been formulated between the National Treasury and the DPME and ourselves as a DSTI. And we are using the STI priorities as outlined in the STI decadal plan to entrench them into the STI intensive government departments, knowing very well that we cannot work in silo, we need to work with the government and the whole of government. All spheres of government, including the provincial minister. So that's how we are doing it with and the task team is actually supporting us very well. And once that is done, we are actually entrenching these priorities to feed into the 5-year plans, strategic plans, and the APPs. I won't talk about the operational plans. And then, once that is done, we are not going to be police, but we want to talk to the AOG and the National Treasury to see how those priorities, the money is following those priorities. Because we realize that sometimes money shifted and money is not used for its intended purpose. So that's how we are doing it currently, and we are moving very well on that. And we are also not just doing that, we actually we formed part of the DPME guideline assessment committee, where we are assessing this department if indeed the STI priorities actually entrenched into this, so that we are adopting a whole government approach. Now, what is the future? What are we looking for in the future? Yes, we are doing all this, it's moving the needle, but it's not enough. What is the future that we are looking for is that we need to move to more like a mission-orientated funding, using this model of the STI budget coordination. And how do we do that? An example of that is that, for instance, if we are trying to solve a problem for this country that is around climate innovation, that involves climate innovation program, we need to see what will be the role of DSTI, whether it's research funding, what will be the role of environment department, whether it's policy regulatory, the role of energy, whether it's all about technology deployment. And most importantly, the industry. How do they come in terms of commercialization aspects of the project? So we need to see that future. And another thing that we also want to see that we have not yet reached, we are doing a lot on, but we still need to do a lot, Minister, is that now people are talking about not the triple helix, not the quadruple helix, but I hope I spell it correctly, quintuple helix. English is not my mother tongue, so forgive me. So that's where we talk about the role of education, economy, the civil society. The interesting thing is the nature, the environment that has been included in, that we need to think. We need to see that coming together, and that's how we see that STI priorities are entrenched into a whole government approach. And Minister, you said it ends science until it affects our society positively. So that's the future we are looking to. So what is our ask in terms of this main reform, which is science, technology, and innovation? Minister, I would like to see this implementation really working. We would like to see setting up of STI desks within the national departments, similar to the gender desks that are being set up and departments are funding. So we want departments to also deliberately fund STI, whether it will be visual offices or visual desk offices. Now that we are going digital and we're moving with the world, but we need those desks to be set up. We also need a STI intensive department to set aside appropriate percentage towards STI. I think Dr. Dlamini talked about the certain percent for commercialization with, I think, DTIC. So we are saying the entire value chain, not just commercialization. So we'll include you in our plans, Dr. Dlamini. And hopefully the STI Act that the DSCI is working on will also be able to help us with that. And the other trench, which is the second one, and I said I'm dealing with reforms in two trench. The other trench, or at the sub-level or sectoral level, we need to look into funding and incentives system, wherein we bring in, moving from silo funding mentality to mission-oriented. The other interesting one, and I think that has been deliberated a lot here, Chair, was the education and skills reform. And it has been a talk of bringing the STEM plus the innovation skills from early childhood beginning. We also need to think about how do we bring in the interdisciplinary learning into our school system. Bring in the science, entrepreneurs, and the policy think tanks together. Most importantly, we need to align our university research with our industry and societal challenges. One thing that Brazil has got this right is this aspect. They've got an institution called SESI and SENAI. SESI and SESI Khomotso. SESI, right? You can Google it. It has got this right where it makes sure that what is coming out of our education system is actually aligned to the industry and, most importantly, solving our societal needs. We also need to support our SMMEs. We need to support our black companies, our startup companies, and work very closely with other departments who are actually playing a bigger role in this. And for us to do this other work of the DSI, we are forging collaborative agreements with various departments. And not just that, but we also talk about the work program where we agree on interventions that will be implemented. And we also follow the money. I said we are not police, but we follow the money. They must also talk about the co-funding of that intervention. As I conclude on this question, we're also working very hard bringing in SMMEs into the instruments that we are offering as government. And I'll make an example of our tax incentive program that we're running as a DSTI with SARS and National Treasury, that our plan is actually to work with historically disadvantaged universities, because we realize that's where SMMEs meet to access research facilities. So we need to hang in there and see how we can get them. And lastly, we need things about the reforms around regulations. I think I won't talk about that. I think my fellow colleagues talked about. But I want to, just one thing to mention, the introduction of what you call sandbox, Chair. Sandbox is something like where we can bring in young people to come in and solve and use whatever technologies and explore and be allowed to fail. I think the DSCI is the department that must be allowed to fail. And in our funding allocation, we must know that we are allowed to fail. We need to explore, and exploring one can fail. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Machira. We're running a bit out of time, and I'm going to go to the last speaker now, and the last speaker is going to talk about inclusive innovation. This is Dr. Tuli Mthethwa. Dr. Mthethwa, the white paper of science and technology, it mandates that innovation must improve the quality of life of our people. However, the STI indicator report shows that 77% of households are digitally disadvantaged. They don't have access to the internet, nor computing devices. We measure the system using the traditional indicators, patents, publications, etc. As someone who works with communities and grassroots innovations, what else do you think we should measure to ensure that we know whether innovation is actually reaching and improving the lives of ordinary citizens? In other words, do we have the right measures for inclusive innovation? Please, if you can briefly share your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much, Program Director. I will start by agreeing with the Minister that we lack and we are behind when it comes to inclusivity. As Memeza just a bit, we are the company that introduced the first public alarm system in South Africa that connects to the police and everyone on the ground, including CPF and the community itself. When we come to measurements, there are very few inclusive innovations like Memeza that have been commercialized at scale, which means our ability to measure real impact is limited. Inclusive innovation includes your social innovation, grassroots innovation, impact innovation, dealing with gender-based violence, potholes, leaking pipes, and most of those lie within this social enterprise or the non-profit organization sector. They are meant to solve social issues in low-income areas. And 90% of the time, the commercialization of such entities lies within government procuring the solutions or CSI giving budgets to solve those social issues. If we are honest, we are often measuring what is easy to count. We are measuring for-profit innovations. We are measuring the bottom line. We are measuring patents, publications, and R&D spend. That's what we measure, rather than what actually changes people's lives. We should be asking, is a woman now feeling safer? We should be asking, is a rural school now have access to water and proper toilets? We need to expand measuring to include social equity, social return on investment, community level economic impact, access to services, improved service delivery, and of course, dignity restored. For example, at Memeza, for the past 7 years, we have spent 50 million paying community-based stipends for community-based job creation. We have created about 6,000 community-based jobs. We have directly supported local economies, SMEs in those communities. Women feel safer, safer communities. SAPs can now reach a victim in 7 minutes instead of the average 45 minutes that we know. These are real impact outcomes, but these are not consistently reflected in what we currently measure, and that's the problem. We cannot measure what we did not implement. So we have to go back to, are we really implementing social innovations or inclusive innovations? No, not really. We are not. If we measure a social impact, we create the ability to fund and scale it. We need to include social return on investment as part of our indicators.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mteta. I mean, this brings us to the end of our panel session. As you can, okay, I'll ask them some questions. So as you can see, these topics are very complex, and they require us to have a proper platform to debate them. They are intricate, they are complex, and I don't think we can do justice to them. But I'm sure our panelists have really raised quite an important issues and insight. What is left for me is just to thank them. Now, Now, the program director has been very generous, and he has given me has given you as the stakeholders a few minutes to ask some pointed questions. I know you've got a lot of questions, but please let's keep them quick by stating your name and organization, and just make one sentence question, please, so that we can finish on time. Thank you. Right at the back.
Thank you very much. I don't know where to press this. BBT. Yes, thank you very much for allowing me. My name is Badi Lohosha, former statistician general and retiree. I got invited by the DG, the STI, to come and talk to them. And the statement I want to make is, not in government is this document saving. Not with DGs is this document saving. When he launched this last year, the president was there and the minister were there. And he made a statement that unless government takes a view of these indicators, we are not going anywhere. It is therefore not surprising that the last speaker there mentioned important matters of concern. Because this document starts with the pain that we have. But this pain captured in this document doesn't filter in government policies and its implementations. And that's the difficulty. And I said that to them. I said, you have pointed to the science, but our government, not the DGs, not anyone, takes care of this pain that we are suffering. One thing that I have to mention, that in the work that I've been doing, in 66% of the country, democracy has collapsed. And if democracy has collapsed, the next local government elections are going to deliver warlords. And that's the danger we face.
No, we've heard you, Dr. I think those are very valid points, which I'm sure they're going to be taken into consideration. A second question, please. Let me start with you, and then I'll...
Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Gugu Koza from Memeza Community Safety. I'm an underling of Dr. Tuli Mthethwa. I think I'm touching on, Minister, and to the panelists, I'm touching on the problem that everyone keeps raising is that how can we get the private sector to invest back into the STI system so that we can, implement the technology and help it grow? I wanted to ask, is it not possible, because now a SARS report actually says that the private sector now receives a rebate of 150% when they invest in, whether it's CSI or STI programs and stuff. I see you guys speak a lot about research and development, but I believe it's missing the I, which Dr. T touched on, which is implementing. Could it not, we offer them the incentive of perhaps offering them a 200% rebate for specific fundings into STIs that implements the technology, that speak to the indicators that you guys are trying to achieve, the inclusive growth, the poverty reductions. Because I think Dr. T did touch that there's a lot of companies, much like Memeza, that have the tools, but the focus maybe has passed the research and development stage and has moved into actually implementing it. But because of lack of funding and capacity, it's now difficult. This would also help speed it up because the private sector has the money to push the STI initiative and get the goals there. They just need the incentive of what do we get? And it ends up becoming a 360 cycle, which comes back to them because they pour into that, they get the 200%, but government also now gets innovative tools on the ground that are actually helping with the socio-economic issues that we are facing. That's also imploring the PhD people who, there's a lot that are unemployed, but we also have a lot of them that are just working regular 9-to-5s instead of utilizing their brains to implement the STI systems to make the country better. That's just thoughts for the brain, a question, basically, Minister and panelists. Okay. Thank you.
Now, if we have time, they can respond to that question. But I want to urge you to ask the question. What is the question? And it should be at least one sentence. Before I interrupt you, one last question, please. Okay, let me go to this gentleman. And so please just ask the question.
Okay. My name is Magezi Mabaso. I'm from Sagnasp. My question goes to Dr. Ndlamini. With regard to patent, I want to check as to what percentage is the delay and the difficulties, that comes with the process of patent. And I'll tell you why I'm asking this. My colleagues in academia are saying that, the institution will be expecting them to have a certain publication within a certain period. But the challenges that comes with getting the patent, given, it takes a long time. So hence I'm asking to say, what percentage does the delays and the challenges contribute to the decline?
Thank you. I think let's give Dr. Dlamini to respond to quickly respond to that question.
No, thank you. Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I cannot give you a percentage. What I would say, though, is that patent examination can take anything between 1 to 3 years before you can have the patent granted. Depending, of course, on where that patent is filed. In South Africa, it's quick because there is no examination process. Within a year, you can get a patent granted. But in other jurisdictions, it can take up to 3 years for the patent to be granted.
Okay. Now that brings us to the end, and thank you very much for the panel once more. And you have been a great audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Acting CEO, are we doing the tokens for the panelists? Yeah, for panelists, we just, as a way of saying thank you, our Acting CEO will give you some tokens. Where are they? Okay, we'll do it later. We'll do it later. Okay, thank you very much. You're excused. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see, there's lots of energy around the report, right? And that's wonderful when we have to stop discussions that are incredibly exciting. I now want to bring us to the closing remarks. I would like to invite Ms. Gugulethu Zwane, the Acting Director General of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, to bring us to a close. Is that good? Yeah.
My choice of shoes this morning is making me use the platform. Program Director, Prof. Bhavesh Khanna, Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Nzimande, NACI Chairperson, Mr. Manyoni, and council members, especially our host, Dr. Dlamini, NACI Acting CEO, Ms. Morgan, Prof. Swartz, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and Head of Missions, distinguished panelists, leaders from science councils and universities, captains of industries that are here, civil society partners, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We have spent the morning engaged in a candid, evidence-based conversation about the state of South Africa's national system of innovation. The Minister laid out with clarity the findings of the 2025 STI Indicators report. The NACI Acting CEO also shared with us visualizations of the key indicators. The panelists and audience probed, challenged, and offered insights and perspectives on various policy issues, challenges, and opportunities. So as we draw this session to a close, I want to distill two key messages that I hope all of us will carry forward. Message one is that the diagnosis is clear and the gap is real. The 2025 STI Indicators Report leaves no room for ambiguity. It tells us with evidence where we are strong and where we are falling short. We have genuine strengths as a country, such as research excellence, transforming universities, growing venture capital, advancing digital governance, and world-class agricultural innovation. These are not small achievements, they are foundations we can build on. However, the weaknesses are equally clear. The declining R&D investment, collapsing patents, a worsening technology balance of payments, export growth driven by price increases rather than new products, skills misaligned with economic needs, and a local innovation failing to reach communities, which has just been shared now. This is not a report to be debated, it is a report to be acted upon. The central finding of this report is a disconnect, a gap between our innovation system produces, what our innovation system produces and what our economy needs. This is further compounded by the current geopolitical environment which we operate in. We produce knowledge, but not enough of it becomes products. We develop skills, but not enough of them match employer demand. We invest in research, but not enough of it translates into commercial value. We design policy which cannot be translated to the needs of the vulnerable and marginalized societies, far from each of the realities on the ground. This gap has consequences. It shows up in stagnant productivity, in sluggish growth, in persistent unemployment, in communities that do not feel the benefits of national progress. Naming this gap is not an admission of failure, but it is a first step towards closing it. The second message is that no single actor can bridge the gap alone. If today's discussions have demonstrated anything, it is that the challenges we face are systemic and the solutions must be systemic too. Government, industry, academia, and civil society cannot fix it alone. What is required is coordination, alignment, and partnerships. The MTDP calls for inclusive growth, poverty reduction, and a capable state. These are national goals. Achieving them requires all stakeholders, every sector, every sphere of government to pull in the same direction. This directly ignites the conversation about placing STI at the center of government, education, industry, and society. The minister's call for a whole of government approach is not rhetoric, it is a practical necessity. Us at DSI, we are committed to translating this evidence into action. We will continue to work with National Treasury to ensure that fiscal incentives for R&D are fit for purpose and effectively stimulate private sector investment. We will work with the DTIC to align industrial policy with innovation goals and to create market conditions that encourage firms to invest in new products and processes. We will continue to work with DPME to embed STI indicators into national planning and departmental performance frameworks, ensuring that innovation is treated as a cross-cutting priority across government. We will also work with science councils, universities, industry partners, and civil society to strengthen the commercialization pipeline, ensuring that the public research translates into private opportunity and that all intellectual property moves from the laboratory to the marketplace. We will continue to work with universities to align graduate output with economic needs, also ensuring that the skills we produce are the skills industry demands. We will strengthen our engagement with the private sector, with industry associations, large firms, small and medium enterprises to understand their needs and to do risk investments and to create conditions where innovation can thrive. And we will strengthen our engagements with civil society to ensure that innovation reaches the communities that need it most, that they benefit, that its benefits are shared and that no one is left behind. In closing, Honorable Minister, Naki Chairperson and Council, Naki Acting CEO, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 STI Indicator Report is not the final word. It is a starting point, a baseline, a call of action. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your leadership and your unwavering commitment to everyday space policy making. I also thank the NACI Chair and Council, the Acting CEO, the experts, and the entire NACI team for their dedication and rigor in producing this report. I thank our distinguished panelists for their insights and candor, and I thank all of you for being here and for contributing to this vital conversation. Now that the Honorable Minister has officially launched the STI Indicators Report, it will be made available to the public so that we can continue the discourse on the outcomes of the report in all our sectors, networks, and organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Director General Zwane, for those insightful closing remarks. I particularly enjoyed the comment that the report is not meant to be debated extensively, but meant to be acted upon. So thank you for that call to action. I think it really summarizes the day well. So, Honorable Minister, on behalf of NACI, we thank you for launching the 2025 STI Indicators Report to everyone here. Thank you very much for your engagement today. I also want to acknowledge our online audience. We do have people who have joined us online. This is a hybrid event. And let us now use the report as a foundation for the partnerships, policies, and innovations that will drive South Africa's economic future, which I think is going to be really bright after this morning. And so that brings us to an official close of the events. I just have two announcements. So we are going to assemble for a photograph here before we break. And no authentic conversation is finished without the breaking of bread. So please join us. Lunch is served on the deck. I believe it's through this door. So please join us for lunch. Thank you very much, everybody. So the minister, panelists, please come to the front. We're going to take a photo. Council members too. NACI council members.